So we've been using Access, okay? Access, it was a great software package simply because it allowed me to demonstrate most of the different major concepts of information systems. Okay, we saw representation, we saw where we have tables and relationships. We saw dialogue where we use forms and queries. We saw, I should say, visualization where we use queries and reports. We did flow, workflow, and through applications. We really have seen almost everything that there is to do. We used macros for programmatic ability. We talked about navigation. And scattered through that, every now and then we did something that I would call some form of logic, okay? Now, a lot of people, when they talk about logic and information systems, usually they're talking about programs, for programming. They went into Access Basic and they did something. Or they built a macro. That's a form of programming, okay? It's a scripting. It's what they call scripting programming. And truthfully, just connecting objects together is kind of an integration. It's kind of a logic thing by itself, okay? There's really different kinds of logic, all kinds of logic, okay? We saw conditional formats. That's a form of logic. If you use an if statement, it's a form of logic, okay? And logic is really what the whole field of artificial intelligence is based on. And it could range from simple things like we've seen so far to very complex decision trees, knowledge bases, object bases, graph databases, fuzzy logic systems, rough systems, neural networks, blah, 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 blah. Artificial intelligence is huge. And obviously, it's something that people go and they specialize in. They get degrees just in artificial intelligence. I think it's worth our while to talk a little bit about other kinds of logic, and especially what I call the purist logic, which is logic that's based on calculation. In other words, it's got a mathematical basis. Now, the truth is, everything we've done in this semester has a mathematical basis. If you really got into this subject and explored it and got a master's degree or a doctorate in it and all that, at some point you would take things like relational algebra and predicate calculus and set theory, advanced set theory, and data. All that stuff is the mathematical foundation for what we've been doing. It's really cool that we just had to learn the mechanics and we're already good at this, right? I mean, think about all the stuff you just did on your projects. If you had to do that in C, how long would it have taken you? A lot more than one semester, I'm absolutely positive. Even small applications, if you write it in just regular code, it's going to take a while. But what we've done over the years is we have abstracted levels where we brought things together and objectized things to allow massive amounts of computation to be done in a simple activity, a simple action, an object that sends a message to another object. But if you start breaking that down and going down to the core and all that, you'll find at some point it all becomes zeros and ones. And you may have to go down many levels. I once had a diagram that showed the levels of abstraction in computing. And I think the last time somebody updated that, it was at like 27 levels. In other words, you could be way out here in some kind of specialized simulator. Under that, you got the full simulation. Then after that, you go down and down until you finally get to applications. And then you go down, you're at the web level, applications on the web, C program, blah, 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 until you're finally down at machine code, and then zeros and ones. You're basically messing around with computing registries, all right? We always forget that underneath all this, it's just a bunch of zeros and ones that are coming together to make something happen. And 0 and 1s is the mathematical equivalent of what we call predicate calculus. Sometimes you'll hear it called binary logic. And binary logic is the basis of all logic. And the thing that's interesting to me is that we never really teach you that. We never teach you about something that is the absolute foundation for almost all the things that we do, where we have some kind of automation involved in it. I was thinking about discrete event simulation the other day. Discrete event simulation is nothing but a bunch of objects with attributes and values that send messages between each other. Guess what? That's the same thing that Microsoft Access is. Guess what? That's the same thing that neural nets do. Guess what? That's the same that everything that we in a practical standpoint do. Now, there are some scientific methods that are a little bit different, and there's things for things like natural language processing that are a little bit different. But again, at some point, they all fundamentally become this thing that we call an object attribute value triplet, okay? The simplest thing is a table. The table is an object. The fields are your attributes, and those fields take on values, object attribute values. We see that happening over and over and over. But we also do this thing that's called message sending, and we've been calling it events mainly. The events that happen in our system, all right? But it basically is how one object communicates with another, how they do things together, how they cause each other to do things, how one could cause a chain reaction of things that happen, and even send out a message to many at once. It could be an amorphic network of things. That's called a graph database, okay? It's a special kind of database. You can actually develop databases that are just graph databases. You can have databases that are just object-oriented databases. You can have databases that are just network databases. But they all fall under this thing that they call graph theory. So yet another mathematical technique that is part of the mix of all this math that comes together that allows us to do logic. And by doing logic, then we can do computation. And by doing computation, we can do automation. All right? That's why it's important to us as industrial engineers. At some point, we come into play, and we usually come into play when it's time to do automation. All right. Now, why am I telling this? Because it'd be really hard for me to demonstrate this concept in Access, but it's really easy to do in Excel. And even if you don't get all of what I'm talking about right now, you're at least going to learn a new trick right now that I bet you didn't know. Something you could do in Excel that will make your things so much more robust, so much more computationally efficient than it's ever been before. So I'm going to go out here and use, I got to go to my, I got too many things open at the same time. I'm using this, it's called L08. Okay, that's the lesson I'm calling this one, all right? And it's going to be very straightforward, very quick, all right? I've got a Excel spreadsheet that I've already started for you. And then I've got a little PDF document that spells out what we're about to do. Oh, I already had that open. I didn't realize that. Close that. Okay. So first thing, let's just go. I'm going to work right from the spreadsheet right now. And this is the assignment. We're going to do it right now. And if you do it along with me, you got it done. If not, I'm recording this session. I'll try to make it available as quick as I can. It does take a little while for it to render. I'll get it up on YouTube and you can do it. It will be due Thursday by 4 o'clock though. I need to get it in so I can get your grades figured out so I can let the people who don't have to take the tests and the ones that do, give them a heads up about what they need. All right, so here we go. I've got a spreadsheet. I'm just going to do some simple stuff here, all right? I've got A, B, C, and D, these three columns. I want to test, is A equal to B? That's all I want to do. Does the value A equal to the value B in this row? How do I do that? Well, first off, it's a mathematical operation. So to do that, I can either use a plus sign or an equal sign to signal that I'm about to enter an equation, right? You guys know this, right? This is basic Excel stuff. Now, I'm not seeing all of you, okay? And one of the reasons why I'm going to ask every now and then, every semester I found out that I have more and more students who have never done a thing with Excel, and that just bothers the hell out of me, all right? If you don't know how to use Excel and you're going to be an industrial engineer, you're not going to get very far, all right? And this is one of the reasons why I'm showing you this, because as an industrial engineer, one of the things I have done many, many times over my career is build big matrices in spreadsheets where I had a lot of if statements, and it really slows things down after a while. But there's another way to do it, and I'm going to show you how to do it through logic. So first, let's look at binary logic. The simple one, A equals to B equals I'll pick A. I'm going to anchor the column, which is a smart thing to do, right? And I'm going to say equal to B. Right there. That is the simplest mathematical operation you could do in a spreadsheet. That is predicate calculus. This is a binary condition for the equality. Where I'm just asking is A equal to B? Well, in this case, it isn't. Okay, I'm going to copy that down. And you guys know to copy down really quick in a range, all I have to do is double click on that little plus sign and it puts it right down there, right? Did you know that? Every time I do that, a lot of people go, oh, I know that. You know, they do cut and paste and blah, blah, copy and paste. And that's fine, you know, but if you have tons of these and you go way, 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 way down, that's a lot quicker, isn't it? And I'm going to show you some of that kind of stuff Thursday, some other productivity tips that you could have here. But you see, I got false and I've got true, okay? In Excel, false evaluates mathematically to be 0. True evaluates mathematically to be 1. Now, in Access, it was different, okay? False was still 0, but true was -1. I don't know why. I don't know why they did that in Access, okay? But in Excel, true evaluates to be 1. That's going to be important to us in a minute, okay? Let's do A less than or A not equal to B. So you got the less than and the greater than sign. That means not. Okay, not equal to. So I'm going to do A. Again, anchor it. You guys don't know how I'm doing this right now. I'm hitting my F4 key. I'm anchoring the column, but I'm making the row relative so that when I copy it down, the equation is right for the row, right? And it's anchored on those columns. So I couldn't move it over into another column and it would work. And then I'm going to have greater than or equal to B. Again, if you guys know some of these things, I apologize, but again, I know some of you don't. Some of you may not have ever seen this stuff before. And again, that really pains me. I'll talk about that a little bit on Thursday night, where I think the future is going with all this and where I think Wichita State's going to have to go with some things. Okay, A greater than or equal to B. I'm just doing a few of these now, not doing all of them, because there's 16 binary conditions, believe it or not. Okay. And A. Oh, so you could start. I may as well just do it like this. A4. This is great, just strictly greater than B. I forgot to anchor the first one, didn't I? You fix that. A is less than or equal to B. And then finally, A is less than B. And we'll copy that one down. So that's my logical conditions on those. Okay, and again, remember, the trues will evaluate to 1 and false evaluate to 0 mathematically. But here we were just, you know, is it true, is it false? But I could use this. I could use this logic to make conditions now. All right, here's some conditionals. And these ones are, I'm sure you've used if statements in Excel before. So I've got if A is less than or equal to B, then make it C, okay, which would be this one here. So right here, this one, yeah, A is less than B, it's true. Then I want this to be C, which would be 4,345 over here. I go in here and look at that and you see the if statement. If A4 is less than or equal to B4, then make it C4, otherwise it's 0, right? That's the parts of the if statement. The first parameter is the expression. Second parameter is what happens if it's true. It's whatever, and this could be a mathematical function. It could be anything, okay? And then this is what happens if it's false. I'm saying it's 0 in that case. So I go through that, and I just copied that equation down. Again, I made it relative, copied it down. And you can see the ones here where A is less than or equal to B were true, all get the value of C, otherwise they get 0. Now here's one where it's A is less than or equal to B and C is less than or equal to D, then C. So here I build a conjunction, it's called conjunction, where I test A less than or equal to B, and that's within the function and, C is less than or equal to D. If both of those are true, that would be true, the and part of it. And then C4 would fire. If either of them were false, then it's all going to be false, and then the second part fires, right? That's the and condition. If they're both false, then it's false. So the only way it could be true is if both this one and this one were true, and then that one fires. And you can see we got that situation here where this one is true and this one's true. That's why it fired. But I'm sorry, step back here. That one, which one was it here? Did I have that wrong? No, this, yeah, right. True, and that one fired. So how come that says true and false? Did I do that wrong? That's not equal to D. That's not equal to C. Oh, I'm testing these. Okay, I'm not testing A and B on both of them. I'm sorry about that. My fault. My fault. I'm testing these two and then these two. All right. So then I've got that. Okay, similar here. Now this is the or. Again, instead of using and, I'm using or here. In the case of or, if either one is true, it's true, right? So they could both be true, or one of them could be true. Then the true would fire. The truth part would fire. But if they're both false, then it's 0. So that's how that one evaluates. Now I've got, if it's less than, make it C. If it's less than, or if A is less than or equal to B, make it C. Otherwise, make it D. So now I'm saying that my false part is going to be something other than 0. It's going to be my else, in other words, my otherwise. If this is this, then this. Otherwise, it's this. Simple to do in if statements, right? I've only got 14, about 10 here, 40 of them right here, right now. That's not much. Computers nowadays, they can handle that. They crank it out really quick. What if that was 40 million if statements? I'll guarantee you'd eat lunch and come back and maybe it'd be done. All right. I once worked on a spreadsheet that had several 100,000 if statements in it. And this was back in the early days of computing when computers were slow as it was. And I would have to let it crank overnight to recalculate. And sometimes it would just be too much for it. It would just barf out, you know. So I was kind of stuck. I was doing a neural net problem that was really important to Boeing at the time. And I had to deploy it, and they wanted me to deploy it as cheaply as possible. It was an array situation, which is something that spreadsheets are great for, is manipulating arrays, right? It's just a bunch of columns, basically, or matrices that you want to manipulate. But the problem is I had so many calculations to make. And I tried everything. I tried everything I could think of. I was using array formulas, you name it, and nothing was working very well. And then I went to a conference, and there was a guy presenting basically the same work I was working on. And he said, and by the way, this is so easy to do. I did it in a spreadsheet. And I thought, oh, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. And the guy brought it up and he put his cursor into one cell and I saw something that changed my life. Seriously, this one thing, this one little thing, all right, I ended up using over and over and over in my career, and you would not believe how many people told me once they found out how I was doing this, that they never realized that Excel could do this, okay? That it never could, they didn't realize that this predicate operation was even available in Excel. But once I realized this, I realized that I could do conditionals mathematically now without using an if statement. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to build the same if statement now, but using conditional, using predicate calculus. And to make this easy on you, I've actually given you the equations here that we're going to put in here. So this is the first one. If you just want to copy it over, you can just, if you can, highlight it. I'm just going to copy it right like that. And I'll explain it to you when I get over there. All right, already evaluate it for me. But if you look at this right now, what does that say? If A is less than B, all right, it's either going to evaluate to 0 or 1, right? If it's true, multiply it by C. This is the same thing as saying if A is less than B, then C. Right? Look at this as I copy it down. Aren't those numbers here the same numbers that are right here? I just want to hear grunts. Who knew this? Did anybody ever see this before? Did you ever know that your conditionals are actually a mathematical operation? There it is. That's how your if statement, if you break up your if statement and look underneath, that's the logic that's in there. You don't need it. You could just put the formula in there and it works. Let's do a harder one. Let's do if A is less than B and C is less than, we'll do this one right here. Then C, again, it's down there in your, if you want to just copy it over rather than typing it all in. I'm going to do that. And copy it down. And look at that, same numbers here. What does that say? That says A is less than B times C is less than D. What's going on here? If that's true and that's true, that's 1 times 1 equals 1. If either of them are false, it's 0. 0 times 1 is 0, and if they're both 0, they're 0 times 0 is 0. So the only condition that could fire would be if they're both true. That's right. If they fired, they're both 1. 1 times C4 is C4. It's the true part of the if statement. All right? Let's do the or case when we have a logical disjunction. And I'm going to have to close you guys down, unfortunately, so I could see this. All right. I'll bring you back in a minute. That way I know you guys aren't falling asleep on me. All right, again, I'm going to copy this one over, this third one. Go up here, put that in. Don't worry about the grid lines, by the way, and we'll expand that out. And you can see that is the same as that, okay? So what is that saying now? Now this one, we're going to use a function within it, okay? We're going to use the max function. It's saying that take the max of A less than B or C less than D, okay? So they're either going to be 0s or 1, right? So if both of these fire, the max is 1, right? If one of them fires, the max is 1. If none of them fire, the max is 0. Multiply that by C, and that's how we get the or condition. Pretty straightforward. Now, one of the things people have said, well, what if I really wanted to make it strictly mathematical? Well, you know what? There's a way to mathematically express max, but it's a lot more complicated. I wouldn't do it simply because it turns out max and min have hardly any overhead in them in Excel. You could have billions of formulas that have max and min in it and doesn't slow things down at all. But if statements do. So I allow max to be used in that case. All right. And then we'll do this last one here, which is a little bit more complicated. And this is the one place where there's a little bit of a drawback, okay, is when you have an else. Because unlike the if function where it's just 2 parts, we're going to have to basically build 2 expressions and bring them together to do this. But it's still not that hard. So what I've got here is I say, if A, now the situation is if A is less than B, less than or equal to B, then make it C. That's what this one does. If it's not, then make it D. So what I have to do here is take the complement of whatever this logic was. So this was less than or equal to, so the complement of that is greater than, right? And then I just add those together because you know what? Only one of them is going to be necessarily true, right? Both of these can't be true at the same time. One of these, on one side of the plus, it's going to evaluate to 0. On the other side, it's going to evaluate to whatever it's equal to. 1 times whatever it's equal to. That's the assignment. Save it, turn it in. Easy as that. How about that? You got an easy 20 points tonight. Showed you exactly how to do it, all right? Mainly I did this again to show you that there's interesting math that goes on beneath all this. And believe it or not, you as an engineer will sometimes face these situations where software isn't helping you very much because it's too damn slow or it's too complicated. You know, you've got too many embedded if statements, and then suddenly it starts getting to be unwieldy. The one thing engineers are really good at is math, especially algebraic math, you know, like this. You know, we are great at it, and we can look at things and almost immediately see it. I will tell you something. I almost have a hard time using if statements now. I've done this so much in my life, you know, and not just in Excel. I've done it in programming languages and other things, and even in Access, where I just think about it mathematically now in terms of the set and what the set is involving. So hope you enjoyed that. I enjoy that one. It's a pretty cool thing to do. I want to show you one of the things people ask me a lot. Again, just turn that in, okay, and you'll get an easy 20 points. So one of the things I get asked a lot in this class is, can you use Excel with Access? And the answer is absolutely, absolutely. First off, you could tap an Access, a table in Access, or even a query in Access from Excel and let it bring back data into Excel. You can import data into Excel if you want to, all right? Or you could use it as just read-only data. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do that. I'm going to go the other way. We're going to open up an Excel, we're going to treat an Excel spreadsheet as if it's a table and bring it into our database and we'll be able to actually utilize that data. We'll still manage the data over in Excel, but the data will be available into an Access database. So this is part of the seminar, and you'll see that those final seminars. I just uploaded this a little while ago. It's called Import Wizard. I'm not actually going to use the Import Wizard on this. I may do this Thursday night. I might show you how to import a database or import a table into Access. Right now, we're just going to link a spreadsheet into Access. So I've already created a file here, SO5 Import Wizard, ACCDB. I just took the BAL and I made a copy of it, okay, just so I have something to work with. What I really want here is I want this right here, this spreadsheet, and I've got a PDF here that describes what I'm doing here too. If you want to look at that afterwards, you can. But I've got this spreadsheet here. This is a spreadsheet of my auctions that I did on eBay. And I actually have 2 worksheets on here, one for my items and one for expenses. Remember when we used that data before? And I brought that into Access and we used it. But what if I wanted to use it still from, just keep it in the spreadsheet and use it in Access? Well, it turns out I could do that. I got to close it down, unfortunately. I'm going to go in here. Whoops, I got the wrong one open. Oh no, I'm opening a new one. All right, here you go. There it is. Okay, so here's the new file. Again, this is just my baseline object library. Okay, I'm going to go up here to external data, and one of the options in here is Excel. Just click on Excel, and one of the options in here, now you can import it, and it would actually create an Access table. Again, I may do that for you Thursday if we got enough time. I just want to link to the Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to do link to the data source and create a link table. So, and then I have to tell it where it's at. So I have to go out here and find it. And that's on my H drive. And it's under, I know where it's at. I got a quick shortcut here. I'm going to go here. seminars. Okay, here we go. All right. And now I'm going to create that link. Now, it comes up with a wizard. And it's going to step me through the process of doing this. I could pick which worksheet I want. I could do either one of them. And I'll do the item one since it's got more fields in it. And it shows me all my fields. And it's just showing me basically what's at the top of that spreadsheet. And showing me that in row 1, I've got the name of the column, which is basically the field name. All right. Go next. And now I can actually say I want that. Now, if that's not checked, you just check that. It'll now say, okay, I'll use that as being my field name. And it goes on. And it says, now let's go make the name of the table. And I know I want this to be a subject table, so I'm going to make it TBL. Finish. And now it says it just created the link to there. And there it is. You'll see it. TBL item. And it'll just get this little Excel icon next to it. Plus an arrow, which means that it's linked into here now. If I open that up now, you'll see there's my table. Now, here's the thing. Even though it looks like an Access table, it's not. It's the spreadsheet. If I try to open up this in design view right now, which I could, it'll let me, but it's first going, usually it gives me a warning saying I can't do it. If I tried to change anything here right now, it would let me change like the caption and all that. I could do that. But it won't let me change the field itself. It won't let me delete it or anything like that, okay? I'd have to actually go over the spreadsheet to do that. So, but you see what I've got here? Look at the data types. It figured them out from the data that was in there. Now, if it couldn't, it would have asked me. If for some reason, say type, it couldn't figure out that it was a short text field, it would ask me. It would have prompted me. What do you want to use for the type of that field? And would do that then, okay? The thing that's cool about this now, again, I could open it up and you can see the data in here. But if you go down all the way to the bottom like we usually do, you'll see that there's nothing to put a new row in here. I can't manage this data. I can't change it here. I can only change it back in the spreadsheet. Well, let's do that. Let's go back to the spreadsheet. I'm going to close this down. I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet. Shouldn't have closed it down. Yeah, I could. I had to. That's right. Okay, go back to the spreadsheet. I'm going to add a record to it. Go down to the bottom and just add a record. Let's make it easy on ourselves. I don't really need this, but what the heck. And we'll just put, they're not required fields, so we'll just put some stuff in here. Okay, I'm going to save that now. I don't know if I have to close this, but I'm going to do it anyway just to make sure. And now I'm opening this up. I go down to the bottom, and you'll see that record's there. So what? Well, the so what is, I could use this in a relationship. I could go up to my relationship window, and I could bring an item, and that's there just like any other table. And I could put categories on it and other stuff and build a form in Access that would manage the data of that Excel database. How cool is that? One of the questions when I do teach Excel, can I make a form in it for Excel? And it turns out there is a mechanism to do forms in Excel, but they're nowhere near as sophisticated as Access forms. You don't get the conditional capabilities and all that kind of stuff like we're used to having in Access, but you can do it this way, all right? Plus, for industrial engineers especially, this is a great way to make a report from Access data. You can make an Access report on your Excel data. Isn't that neat? All right. I've told you, I know people who only use Access to create reports. And what they're usually doing is they're creating reports for Excel. That's how you do it. So a couple little things. Now, one of the things I also get asked a lot is, can I do it with other things besides Excel? You bet. Other databases, anything. If I go up here to external data, well, I got to close this window down to get there. Go up here, you'll see ODBC, you could go to other Access databases and hook them in. ODBC is things like Oracle or SQL Server. You could go, if you have the ability to generate an XML file, you could, as long as it's columnar, you could get to that. You could do just flat text files. As long as things are in columns, it will try its best to figure it out. Maybe it's CSV, delimiting files, whatever else. And then the newer ones like SharePoint. I've been doing this lately, you know, where I have Access databases that I link to SharePoint, and I could get the SharePoint lists from Access. Data services. You probably have heard about cloud services for databases, okay? If your cloud service supports a link to relational databases that are on site, you might be able to actually do a data service, link to a data service. And I've seen people actually link to HTML that's out on the web, okay? One that I did is Yahoo makes available, the Yahoo Finances makes available stock information that goes all the way back to 1929. All right, and it's all in a massive table, and I have been able to hook to that from an Access database to bring in stock prices, the history of certain stocks that I might have in my database, things like that. I've never done one for an Outlook folder though, but I have done all these other ones, and it's pretty slick. Now, on the services, you do have to have the ability at your server to be able to connect to it. I'll just let you know that. All right. I just wanted to show you that there are a lot of cool things that I didn't, in Access, that I didn't get to teach you, simply because even though they're part of doing information systems, they're not part of the core of doing information systems. When I do the advanced class, I do get into these other